But we have with us a fabulous panel. We have with us first thing all the way from Judea, Israel, from the city of Efrat. We have Knesset member Ohad Tal. Right. So Ohad is a member of the religious Zionist party. He was born in the southern city of Eilat, Israel's current southern border. I hope it gets even more south, but it's Israel's southern border of Eilat. It's the city that enters into the Red Sea. It's a very special place.
Not in Judea and Samaria, by the way.
It's not in Judea and Samaria.
Unfortunately.
But it's in the beautiful Negev desert. I actually never asked you the story about how your parents got there and all that. I'd like to hear about that. He was previously the director of World Bnei Akiva. That's a Zionist movement for youth. We talked about youth yesterday. He was the vice president of World Mizrahi. He was a shaliach, an emissary in the Netherlands. So maybe you got a chance to meet one of today's great heroes, Geert Wilders.
Goedemorgen.
Huh?
Goedemorgen.
What does that mean?
Good morning.
Goedemorgen, okay. Boker tov, okay. We have with us, of course, the one and only inimitable Ari Abramowitz, the co-founder. And he's really just as likable in person as he is on stage, mostly. And he's the co-founder of the Land of Israel Network. He's the co-founder of the Arugot Farm and Spiritual Retreat, one of the most beautiful places in the Land of Israel, that in our lifetime, through the work of this man and his partner, Jeremy Gimpel and others, have turned the place that was just desert into a flourishing oasis and has brought the Land of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called rebirth. That's called resurrection. That's rebirth. Thank you, Ari Abramowitz. And of course, he's also the host of the weekly Land of Israel Fellowship, which many of you are part of. And today we are joined also by Rabbi Pesach Walicki. Rabbi Pesach is the executive director of Israel 365 Action, a faith-based grassroots initiative to educate Christians and Jews about current events in Israel. He also hosts his own weekly magazine show on Real America's Voice Network called Eyes on Israel. All right. So it's a star-studded panel. And let me just explain to the panelists and to yourselves what this panel is about. This panel is about laying out the big vision. The big vision. You know what? Let me take a step back. Yesterday, I landed here in Nashville, getting ready for the conference. I looked at the news and I looked at my WhatsApp from Israel, and they're telling me that in my town of Efrat, 500 to 1,000 dunams, what is that, 250 acres of land were burnt by Arab terrorists, arsonists, okay? And I'm like, oh, and I had to deal with that because I'm involved in the town. And so this panel is not about that. It's not about the problems. It's about the vision. The vision of not the little problems that we're dealing with, but rather, how do we move forward? Where are we moving forward to? You have to have a vision if you want to move towards something great. Okay, so let's just make it right about that from the get-go. Gentlemen, I ask all three of you to give me a 3-minute answer, if possible. Ari, I'll let you go over a little. It's just joking. A 3-minute answer on give me a vision of what Judea and Samaria is. What is it supposed to be? What is the thing that we want to share with the world and maybe with ourselves that we have to work towards too? Rabbi Pesach, bevakasha, take it away.
Thank you, Yishai. Thank you for having me on this panel, and thank you, of course, to the Israel guys, to Hayovel, for everyone who made this all possible. The first time I ever went to Israel was in 1981. It was before the first Lebanon War, and I was there with my family. My parents took the whole family to Israel for a whole year. And I remember distinctly going shopping in Ramallah. I remember going shopping in Bethlehem. I remember walking around Hebron and the Arab neighborhoods, in and out of stores. I remember walking around on my own. We lived in Jerusalem for the year. I remember walking around on my own in the Muslim quarter of the old city without any fear of anything. Here's a thought experiment. And afterwards, during the course of this conference, if you want to argue with me, I'm more than happy. I love when people disagree with me and we can mix it up. But here's an interesting thought experiment. From 1948 till today, conjure up in your mind the answer to this question. What is the 5-year period? And I deliberately am choosing 5 years. What is the 5-year period in Israel's history from 48 till today that was the safest and most peaceful? I'll let you think about that for a second. Because in my opinion, from my read of history, it's the period after the Yom Kippur War until Camp David. And if you think about it in terms of casualties, in terms of conflict, in terms of trouble with our enemies, I believe that that's the correct answer to the question. And think about that. We had not yet made any concessions to anyone, and our enemies had come to the conclusion after a couple of failed attempts to destroy us that it wasn't going to work. And Israel was at its physically, geographically largest it had ever been. And it was the safest, most peaceful time in Israel's history. And I'm sorry to go a little negative. You want this to be about the big rosy picture for the future, but this plays right into it. People wonder about, what will change the view of the Arabs? How will they change their mindset? How will they change their ideology? How will they become peace-loving and want to ever live with us? Because, again, if we're talking about the big picture, let's remember, and we should always tell people this, Jews are not looking for a Jewish state that has only Jews. Even in the Bible, even in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses paints the picture of the idealized biblical Jewish state, it includes others, what the Bible calls Hager Asher Bisharecha, the stranger. The word stranger is a bad word in English in terms of this because it implies strange. The word ger means someone of other nations who lives among you. Even the idealized biblical vision of Israel includes people of other nations who live among us peacefully. That's fine. We're cool with that. The Bible's cool with that. However, they cannot harbor any dreams of destroying us. And it's only when it's clear to them that that's not an option, as it was between the Yom Kippur War and the concessions made at Camp David, only then can there be peace. And that is why there must be complete and total victory in this war. Not because if someone says to you, hey, you've inflicted so much damage on Hamas anyway, they're not really an existential threat, come on, they're not going to destroy Israel. Unless they know up here that it's not an option to destroy us, unless they get to the point that the Arab states were at in 1975, 76, 77, unless they get back into that mindset, we're not going to have peace with them. So my vision is to go back to that Judea and Samaria of my childhood, where we can live in peace with them, and there can be greater prosperity, and it was also the greatest time of prosperity for the Arabs. That period of time, by the way. They had it great. Jews were shopping in their stores. You talk to old Arabs who remember that time period, and they loved it. Jews shopping in the Arab towns and people coexisting. But the coexistence, this is the Middle East, it has to be built on an assumption that they know that they cannot get rid of us. So my vision, sorry to not be as rosy as you'd hoped, but my vision is a vision of coexistence and of peace. But it has to be built on what we all know today is peace through strength. And strength comes the same way, and this will be my final sentence, and I'll kick it back to you, Yishai. Just like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, who were evil, genocidal worldviews and societies, became rather benign nations that could live in peace with the rest of the world because it was unequivocal defeat, unfortunately, and this is a harsh pill to swallow, unequivocal defeat of our enemies. When I say unequivocal, it means that there's no other way to interpret it, is a necessary prerequisite for living in peace with them.
All right, thank you very much. I guess I could sum it up with peace through strength, and being strong against the bad guys, the good guys will flourish and the land will flourish. Knesset member Ohad Tal, a vision for Judea and Samaria.
Thank you very much. I will try to actually make it 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
No. I enjoyed listening to you. And I agree with everything you just said. You know, I think that if you started talking about...
Is this an Israeli panel or what, huh? We're doing
we have to fight about something. You started
coming out of your time.
You started talking about history. And when was Israel most safe and secure? But I think we can ask another question. When did the world liked us the most? He liked us very much in 1948 when we were weak, right? He liked it a lot until 1967. Everybody loved us until 1967. What happened in 1967? We came back. I mean, when we were only weak and when we were only in Tel Aviv, yeah, okay, great. Wow, when you won, you fight against 7 armies and beautiful. Great story. The second we actually came back to our homeland, the second we've touched Jerusalem and Hebron and Shiloh and Bethlehem and all these places, the second we came back to the Bible land, that second, the world didn't like us anymore. But I think that that's just the beginning of the explanation. They didn't like us because we touched these places, but we didn't actually said, this is ours. We didn't say that. That's the problem. So I think in that vision, we should start believing and acting as if this is ours. We came back to our homeland because it's ours. And, you know, I don't have to come up with a new vision to Judea and Samaria. I just have to read the Bible. And if you read the Bible and you go to Isaiah, you see what is happening. You see, and you spoke about the fact that Israel has to be open for everybody. It's true. It says in Isaiah that at the end of the days, the temple, the house of God, will be firmly established at the peak of the mountains, and all nations shall stream to it, for my house shall be a house of prayers for all nations. This is the vision of the people of Israel. We didn't came back after 2,000 years of exile to our homeland just for our sake. No, we came back to serve God, and we came back to serve humanity. And all of humanity should be part of that vision. But I will also quote something else from Isaiah, and I will finish with that and I'll pass it on to you, is that Isaiah says that at the end of the days, the wolf shall live together with the lamb, right? The cow with the bear. And for that vision to happen, when we committed to this vision, we have to be the wolf. That's the only condition.
I never heard that. And it's apropos because, you know, the Benjamin region, their call sign from the Bible is the wolf. So let's be that wolf. Okay, I like that. I never thought of myself as that. I like that. Ari Bromwitz, your beautiful farm has a synagogue, really a house of prayer, more correctly. It's not even a synagogue. That's a Greek word. It's a house of prayer that faces towards Jerusalem. In the distance, you can see Jerusalem. You can see the Dead Sea. The place is a spiritual retreat without even being a spiritual retreat. It just is. You just go there. You feel it immediately. You've articulated through your actions a vision for Judea and Samaria. Go ahead. Give us the bigger vision.
So thank you, Yishai.
You, by the way, taught me that whenever I bring people out, give them a vision, you always told me. And so
you are my vision of Rebbe. It's really true. Yishai is, I don't want to take this is not my 3 minutes.
No, this is
but I do want to say.
I yield to my honorable
I want to say something
colleague.
Because to speak in front of Yishai, I owe Yishai so much of who I am and the fact I'm living in Israel. He taught me how to have vision and how to actually, he was all about Aliyah. Pushing Aliyah, aggressively Aliyah, come back home. And it spoke to my heart, and it woke me up. And then I went to Israel, and we became friends. And he said, we need to get the idea of the Aliyah revolution out to the world. They all need to know about the Aliyah revolution. I was like, all right, Fleisher, good luck. Like what? Anyways, he printed up a number of posters, just wrote Aliyah Revolution, went to a Nefesh B'Nefesh arrival at El Al, handed them out to people. They held them up because he put them in and then all of a sudden I get a link, and I'm Christiana Amanpour with CNN International. In Tel Aviv, we have an Aliyah Revolution. Like, what? Yishai just said that yesterday, and now it's on CNN. So he helped me realize that we have the ability, if we just make that switch in our head, that we can actually really do things. Now my 3 minutes begins.
They begin now. Go ahead.
Okay, because when I live on, I'm envisioning being on my mountaintop. It's been so many years since I've left. I feel like Superman sitting on a pile of kryptonite, just like trying to talk about Judea, because we do. We live in the mountains. Biblically, it's the mountains of Ziph. This is where King David wrote the Psalms. So many of the Psalms he wrote right there on the land. And I used to believe that must be why you can tangibly feel the holiness in our mountains. But I've come to believe, without having any rational reason to do so, it's just a belief that I have, that is just deep inside me, that the holiness of our mountains is infused in the land from the days of creation. And King David was inspired to write the Psalms there because of that holiness. And that's what I want to say. The dream I want to share with you in this 2 minutes isn't my dream. It is my dream, but the only reason it's my dream is because it's the vision of the God of Israel, through the prophets of Israel, that this is the dream of what Judea is. Because Yishai said last night, he said, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And right now, the idea that was born in the hills of Judea thousands of years ago, the time has come for that to come into fruition right now. In the mountains where I live, right, the village over, it's called Ma'ale Amos, the heights of Amos. Why? Because it was in those mountains that Amos, the prophet, had his prophecy. And he said, Ra'av ba'aretz, lo ra'av la'lechem ve'lo tzama l'mayim kim lishmoa divrei Hashem. There will be a hunger in the land. And the hunger will not be for bread, and the thirst will not be for water, but to hear the words of God. And you look at young Christians and young Jews, hundreds of thousands of them that are so thirsty, and I'm sorry, they're not getting that deep spiritual thirst satisfied in their synagogues in America and in their churches of America. They're not. And some of them, the lucky ones, end up in an ashram in India, okay? And the unlucky ones end up at a campus protest singing Free Palestine. But it's coming from this spiritual thirst, that it's this vacuum within them that is not being filled. And the greatest spiritual legacy in the history of the world is in the hills of Judea. And so my vision, the vision of the prophets of Israel, say that when the nation of Israel returns to the land of Israel, returns to the hills of Judea, God will take from us a heart of stone and put within us a heart of flesh. That he will circumcise our hearts. The prophecy will come over us again. That we will return to being a source of light. So my vision is to restore Judea to being an international capital of tourism. Not just tourism, spiritual tourism. A place where people go around the world, not like the 4 million Yishai said. Hundreds of millions from around the world coming to the hills of Judea to experience the word of God living and burning within their hearts. That's my vision and that's my dream.
All right, beautiful. All right, that was great answers. Thank you very much. And I'm going to riff off of what Ari just said. First thing is, he mentioned something that I said yesterday, which is I said Israel has, at the best of years, had upwards of 4 million tourists. Turkey, at the same period, has 54 million tourists. Okay, so we're not doing something right yet. And you used a great term, Ari, spiritual tourism. So I'm going to turn it to the crowd for a second. What's your favorite place in Israel? Is it Shiloh? Hebron? Aragot Farm? City of David, right? What's that? What?
Tel Dor.
Tel Dor, okay, good.
Eilat, everybody?
Eilat, okay.
Eilat?
Woo! I want to turn to the panel now and ask them, Shiloh, City of David, are doing a great job of bringing spiritual tourism. The story of the red heifers did a great job of bringing a lot of tourism, and according to some reports, was one of the catalysts for the October 7th war. Because that was the fear of the spiritual reality that was coming to bear fruit in the land of Israel. So I want to ask you, dear panelists, tell me about what those sites are doing right. Tell me what the city of David is doing right. Tell me about what Shiloh is doing right. How are they tweaking spiritual tourism, and is that something that we could get, we can grow? Knesset member Oatel, b'vakasha, start with you.
First of all, and I think one of the biggest thing we have to learn from October 7th is to go back to the truth, okay? To realize the truth. And I think what they're doing is showing the truth to everybody. You know, I have to, if that's okay, I want to show you something. I wasn't prepared for this question, but I'm always prepared with this coin. So I'm holding here in my hand a very special coin. It's made out of pure silver. It carries ancient Hebrew letters. On one side, it says Chatzi HaShekel, which basically means half a shekel. And on the other side, it says Yerushalayim HaKdosha, Holy Jerusalem. Now this coin is 2,000 years old. We know it because it says the date here is here printed on the coin. And it was found by the people of the city of David on Temple Mount. So the truth is, I mean, they're trying to say that we are colonizers who came to take over a land which is not ours. That's the biggest proof that the Jewish people simply came back home. That's it. That's the truth.
Okay, Pesach, what do you think? When you tour groups around in Israel, what's the most successful place? What's the place that's like the aha moment, that it did it? That's the one that sears into their minds. And what is that site doing right?
I think it's in the Western Wall tunnels. Mm-hmm. You know, in my experience bringing groups through and for myself, you know, when you go through the Western Wall tunnels, raise your hand if you've been on the Western Wall tunnel tour. Good, a lot of hands go up. If you haven't been, you got to do this. To me, it's a life-changing event. Because when you go through the Western Wall tunnels, there's one particular spot on that tour where you look even further down, and you see some rock, some of the stones from the temple, lying at all sorts of awkward angles. Because at the time of the destruction of the temple, these Roman soldiers, they were burning the temple down, but the temple was made of stone, so burning it wasn't so effective in terms of destroying it. It burnt all the wooden parts. Stone doesn't burn that well. So they started pushing the stones off the top. Josephus writes about this. And you look down and you see these stones lying at all sorts of awkward angles, and you realize that some Roman dude at the top of the wall shoved this stone, and it fell, and now you're looking at it where it fell. And the thousands of years of history from that day to that moment that you're looking at it suddenly shrink down to nothing. And you're right there at the moment of the destruction of the temple. And never in a million years did that Roman soldier ever think that Bible-believing Christians and that faithful Jews would be walking in an independent Jewish state on that spot in Jerusalem as we are today. So what these sites do, what a site like the Western Wall tunnels and the Davidson Center and City of David, what they do is they shrink the gap of history down to nothing. And we have an easier time realizing what the Bible tells us, and that is that the Bible doesn't only have stories about the past. The Bible also has stories about the future. You're not only visiting a biblical site when you go to Capernaum and you see some place where Jesus walked. That's past. You are that person walking across the Red Sea. When the Jews walked across the Red Sea, they didn't think to themselves, hey, I'm in the Bible. But we're in the Bible, and those sites that shrink history down to nothing remind us that we are the extension of those biblical stories.
Very good. Okay, Ari, same question for you. Did I already ask you? I didn't ask you yet, right? It's your turn. So, what are you doing right that other people can copy in Israel to promote that vision that we talked about in the previous question? What are you doing right? I'll give you just one example of something that you did years ago.
I just burned my tongue.
Huh?
I'm suing Dave Ramsey.
Moses burns his tongue as well. Don't worry about it. I want to say that you, a long time ago, you were one of the first people to conceptualize that people, like people in this audience, want a little piece of the land of Israel. You created this necklace that had layers of different sands from the land of Israel. You realize that people want that close to their hearts. It's a very ancient tradition, by the way, that people want sand or dirt from the land of Israel. Jewish people around the world are buried with a little bit of sand or dirt from the land of Israel. So this way people could carry it. You conceptualize the way to people, for people to feel and connect with that. You're doing a lot of that on the Our Goat Farm. What can people copy from you about the vision for Judea and Samaria, about this biblical vision?
Okay, well, I wouldn't say necessarily that, early on people would come to the farm and it would be electric and magical, and I was like, wow, I'm really perfect for this position. I'm really lighting things up. And then I found that when I'm not there, it's even better for them. There's something about the land itself, being in the land and breathing the air. The sages say the air of Eretz Yisrael, machkim. It makes one wise, just breathing in the land of Israel. So I'm going to answer your first question that you posed, not about what they can learn from me or what I'm doing right, because I have no idea. But I'll talk about one of the sites that you said, Shiloh. Shiloh, it has a special place in my heart. When my wife was pregnant with our firstborn son, we went there and we named him Shiloh. After that very place. Shiloh Hashem, a gift to Hashem. That's what Shiloh means. And I'll tell you that I think tourists, when they come to Israel the first time, they go to the sites. And they stop at all the sites. Then they want to go again. They don't know why. They were there already. They could go somewhere, but they go again. And then they go to the sites, and it's just not the same. And then they meet the people. And then they start saying, oh, that's what this is really all about. They figure that out, and then they start saying, I just want to meet the people. So what is Shiloh doing right? It's not about the site, and it's not about tourist traps. Meet the authentic, real, true Jews of Shiloh. The Jews of Shiloh, what's happening in Judea is a revolution. The greatest revolution in world history, and I'm not saying revolution, in the actual term of revolution, what does revolution mean? A minute hand has one revolution around the clock, and it goes back to where it began. That's what a revolution is, returning to where you began. There's no greater revolution than the revolution of Shivat Zion, the return to Zion, the nation of Israel returning to the land of Israel, and what I see happening to the children, to the youth. They are returning to the most authentic. I find that when I talk to them, I have nothing to say. What am I going to say to them? I'm learning from them what it is to actually, they walk through the fields of Judea. They have the dumb phones, which are actually the really smartphones. With just like the numbers. They don't want the screens and all of that. They're barefoot. They walk through Arab villages fearless. They have their harps and they're reciting the Psalms. And there's something so beautifully indigenous and holistic and authentic about the Jews of these places. And so I think we need to really have the Jews be emissaries. Bring groups to meet just the Jews. Let that interaction happen. Let those relationships grow and develop. And I think that's really what will light up the tourism from around the world.
Great answers, guys. Great panel. We have just a little bit of time left, so I'm going to ask the panelists to cooperate, and that is to try to answer in 60 seconds. So it's wishful thinking. But I mean, what I want to ask you guys in 60 seconds is, give me one piece of advice about how we could promote it better, sell it better, sell the vision of Judea and Samaria better. I know it's tough, 60 seconds. And you know what, Ari, you finished. Let's go this way. Go ahead. You can't start with you? Fine. Go ahead, Rabbi Pavlicki, go ahead.
Well, one way to sell it better is to bring everyone to Our Goat Farm, to visit Ari and Jeremy. And I'm very serious, and I'll tell you why. It relates to what I just said before. People come to Israel, they believe that they're coming to see old things. They're coming to see things from the past. Talk about a biblical site, and they think that seeing a biblical site means seeing something old. But as I said, the Bible doesn't just talk about the past. The Bible talks about the future. And the Our Goat Farm, where I brought groups of like Christian academics, professors of Bible and theology who think they're so smart, and they melt when they come to the Our Goat Farm because they realize that the Bible is about the future. And Our Goat Farm is not built on the ruins of some ancient town. It is a biblical site, not because of its connection to the past. It's a biblical site because of its connection to the future. And I think we need to sell the fact that Israel is a revelation of prophecy, and is about the future, not sell the fact that Israel is a place to connect to ancient history.
Thank you. Very good. Knesset member Otal, please.
Because I see we have only 27 seconds, so I'll say it very, very fast, and we'll continue.
I know some of the
talking about it
organizers.
later.
I'll give you an extra 30
I think
seconds. Go
that
ahead.
the way that we can sell it better is that if we will believe, as I said before, if we will believe that the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel, we have to believe it first, and then we can sell it to others.
Amen. Okay, great. Simple and awesome. Ari, last words?
I have something controversial that I'm going to say that I'm even conflicted about because people get upset, but I've always felt like there's a certain level of the anti-Semitism throughout history has been a deep subconscious resentment against the nation of Israel for not being the light that we are supposed to be. And now that we're but we can't be that light from the diaspora. We're just not supercharged in the way that we are in the hills of Judea, in the land of Israel. And so Yishai, would also often say, this is the land of God. Broadcast to the world, this is the land of God. But more than that, come and get blessed. Get blessed in the land of Israel. We need to be a source of blessing, and a blessing by not only sharing light, but sharing love. We've been so fearful for so long throughout the exile for good reason that fear negates the ability to really have an open heart filled with love. But now that we're back in our land and we have the ability to defend ourselves and to fight nations far greater than us, and we know that it doesn't matter how outnumbered we are. As a matter of fact, the more outnumbered we are, the better things always go for us. It always goes better for us. In the West Point Military Academy, they don't study the 6-Day War. And they say, here we study wars, not miracles. And that is what I think we have, now that we have the confidence and the courage and the faith in the land of Israel, we can start blessing the world. And that will be a magnet for all of mankind.
Thank you, Knesset member Ohatal, Ari Abramowitz, Rabbi Pesach Wilicki, for this panel on a vision for Judea and Samaria, and I urge all of you to share your vision with the world. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Panel! Thanks, Yishai. What a panel. Very informative. Ohad, thank you. Thank you. What a great panel.